guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me for another video. So as promised, I'm going to start off the video by talking about our weekend away to Windsor. For those of you that are not interested and you're here just to listen to the royal gossip, if you skip directly to this time, and I will meet you there shortly. Now for the rest of you, we had such a great time. One sad thing, I did lose my hat. This was my really expensive posh hat from Laird & Co down in Oxford. So we've now got an excuse to go back to Oxford, but I was absolutely devastated. I rang around every taxi company and it's gone, it's lost. So if you see anyone walking around Windsor wearing this hat, just wave it. Obviously don't accost them because, you know, that might actually genuinely be their hat. As for the castle, we booked there the first day. You book for a set time, but it's not a guided tour. It's a lot bigger. I know it sounds silly, but because I've always walked past the castle from the long walk or from the outside, even at night time, but to go in there, you realise how huge it actually is. And this obviously doesn't cover the entire Windsor estate. Some of my favourite things of walking around Windsor grounds, however, was going into the chapel. We have seen Princess Eugenie be married here, Harry and Meghan. We have seen sad things like the funeral of Prince Philip, and then we have the Queen. It's an emotional place. I always feel a little bit emotional in big cathedrals and chapels that have got a lot of history. You can always feel there's like a bit of emotional residue still there. But it's the stained glass windows, it's the Gothic design of the seating. I remember the Queen sitting there, and it was all to do when we had that awful restrictions in place. And whilst it was sad to remember things like that, I spent most of my time walking around with my jaw on the floor. I saw where the Queen and Prince Philip had been laid to rest. As soon as I saw the black plaque with the gold writing, I got as far as Prince Foot and then woof, waterworks. And I was like, nope, had to walk away. But there were lots of other people that got just as emotional. When we left there, I turned around and I thought that looks familiar. And this is the exit to the chapel that Harry used. Now, this is the walkway along where the chapel is. You can see the chapel behind me here, but this actual walkway, it's all enclosed with lots of buildings all the way around it and lots of people walking up and down it. There's armed guards everywhere. So the fact that Harry drove his big security vehicle to park outside, to me, definitely being there reaffirmed the fact that he wanted to be seen. Plus, you can see around there's lots of different private access points. So it was obvious that that was definitely staged to make sure it made it into the newspapers. As for the staterooms, they were incredible. Indoor photography is banned because it's a massive security breach, because members of the royal family still live there, they still work there, so you can't just go around and be snap happy. I did get a couple of photographs before my husband quickly said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot." But luckily, I didn't get in trouble or anything. They're really friendly in there. All the staff cannot go out of their way to answer any questions that you may have. So one of my favourite rooms was the Crimson Room. I love this because I was like, I know this, why do I know this? And it was where Catherine, in that beautiful blue gown, played the piano for the Eurovision Song Contest. One of the other places we walked into was the incredible St George's Hall. And a member of staff said, this is where Prince Harry and Meghan announced Archie to the world. And I was like, yes, didn't they also happen to bump into the Queen and Philip sarcastically? And they were like, yes, as one does when you walk around someone's home. And the way that they said it, with a bit of a smirk and a wink, I was like, oh yeah, no love lost here for those two. But being in the grandness of that hall and the backdrop of it is so obvious why they decided to show Archie to the world there. It was all about one-upmanship. Look at the grandness behind. We're in the castle of the Queen presenting our child like Simba to the world. But the rooms on the whole, just generally, I had a better time in Windsor than what I've done any museum I've ever been to, any exhibition I've ever been to. I found it absolutely fascinating, as did my husband, because obviously this was a thing more for me because of the royal family. He had a great time, absolutely loved it. There's lots of things to see and do in Windsor. We went for a boat ride on the river. I would advise, if you're going to go this time of year, wrap up warm. The great thing that comes with going around a historical old town is all the kooky sort of pubs that you get, all the little nooks and crannies, interesting furniture. Some of those pubs are incredibly old as well. However, I will say that we didn't go for a drink in this one out of principle because I'm petty, and instead we opted to go to this pub instead. We ate out at lots of restaurants. Our favourite restaurants was the Mason, a Lebanese restaurant near the castle. As you can tell, my husband was a happy boy. For me, it was the Vietnamese family-run restaurant called Delicious Pho, which is just inside Windsor Old Station. And we ate there twice. We loved it so much. We spent our honeymoon in Vietnam, so it was like going back in a time machine. Windsor on the whole is an incredible place. I highly recommend staying there. We stayed at the Union Inn, which is in Old Windsor. It's very near where Andrew lives and the Royal Lodge. And even that place had a beautiful painting on the wall of the Queen. This painting was super special as well because it's the only painting that has ever been done of Her Majesty with her handbag alongside her. And it's very special to the pub because it is the landlady's nephew who painted it. So there you go. That's a royal roundup of a weekend away in Windsor. So hello to the rest of you that are just joining in. Let's get the show on the road. We're going to start with Dr. Gabor Maté, who seems to be having some serious regrets over the interview that he did with Harry, which coincided with the release of Harry's memoirs called Spare. Dr. Maté, in an interview, has expressed his regret of actually interviewing Harry because it was behind a paywall. He said it's had a profound negative effect on him and his work. Well, let's be honest, diagnosing someone live on TV because of what you read in their book, which they didn't even actually write themselves, professionally could be seen as a really stupid move. But doesn't that remind you of Dr. Spiegel on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case? Those of you that don't know about that case or you didn't watch it, this guy, a trained physician and psychotherapist, diagnosed Johnny Depp, right, from watching Pirates of the Caribbean. He said from his diagnosis that, Johnny Depp portrayed symptoms and signs of someone that suffered from substance abuse. He diagnosed that from watching Captain Jack Sparrow. He's an alcoholic. I mean, honestly, where do they get these people? But Dr. Gabor was actually someone that was respected in his field. I hadn't heard of him personally myself. But his regrets are he should have listened to his gut instinct and not got involved. Surprisingly, he didn't mention diagnosing Harry as being part of the issue, but he did say that he neglected to being true to himself. The Diary of a CEO podcast saw Dr. Maté explain he was profoundly uncomfortable with the discussion being put behind a paywall. Dr. Maté obviously doesn't mention whether he actually took a paycheck for carrying out that interview. That I don't know. But he said that he was unhappy that people had to purchase Harry's book to be able to watch it live and it wasn't available to the public. They had to pay to watch the interview and then they got a free book sent to them. So in effect, whichever way you dress it up, basically people had to buy Harry's book. Harry had already sold 4 million copies. So Dr. Gabor felt it was, slightly unethical. Now he does go on to say that he and Harry did try and put it forward. This should be aired to the public that anyone could watch because people could learn from it. And learn to pick your life partner better, I'd say. But they were reportedly shot down by the lawyers because they'd advertised it as a one-time only interview, that they couldn't then show it for free because obviously the people that had bought the book or paid to watch the stream of it would potentially have a lawsuit. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did Harry actually hear those words from his lawyer, or was that something that Meghan said the lawyer had told her to pass on to Dr. Gabor and Harry? She's not doing anything for free, and nor is Harry. He went on and said, I believe that it should be a free public service, but out of sheer opportunism, I agreed to it, so I didn't follow my gut feelings. I lost myself even in agreeing to the format. Yes, you allowed Harry to use you as a doctor with some credibility to attack the monarchy again with allegations that most of us know are completely unfounded and untrue, and to promote his book. So obviously Dr. Gabor has now got buyer's regret. Now, regarding Harry's book Spare, he's not the only person that's expressed regrets over certain things, and that is J.R. Mooringer, who actually was the ghostwriter that wrote it. He said that he'd had regrets. Harry was apparently very awkward to work with. He has defended the book for its inaccuracies, but at the end of the day, Harry has not lined up what he said in Netflix, what he said in previous interviews pre-meeting, obviously, his wife Meghan, to what was said in this book. There were so many inaccuracies that didn't make sense. And of course, other people came forward. It wasn't just the royal family, his accusations against them. It was many people in Harry's life that spoke out and said, that's not true, that didn't happen. And embarrassingly, in some cases, even military officers that helped train Harry. So as a ghostwriter that wants to do biographies of people, and he did a very successful one of Andre Agassi, it's not done his credibility any good, especially when he defended the fact that Harry has lied so much in the book, and it's been proven that he has told 1 or 20 porcupines. He said, it's not about actually what happened, it's how Harry remembers it. It sounds like the sort of waffle that comes out of Meghan's mouth, doesn't it? It's not the truth, but it's my truth. It's not what happened, it's how I felt it happened. I mean, it's not really a great excuse for telling lies, is it? The amount of lies that Harry and Meghan tell, I really don't understand how anyone can just take their word for anything anymore. It does beg the question, why do people still choose to have them at events? Why do people still want Meghan and Harry speaking? And the truth is, they don't want Meghan. They want Harry. It has always been about having Diana's second son. Take Netflix, for example. There's a reason why Meghan's projects never got off the ground and they cancelled Pearl before it started because, well, it was a cartoon about a child version of Meghan, no doubt going to be voiced by Meghan. You know, it was very much going to be a Meghan Markle cartoon. That was shot down. As for Netflix, the docuseries that they did do, it was the Meghan show. It was to do with Meghan's childhood, being biracial, Meghan facing racism, Meghan's acting career, Meghan meeting the prince, the love of her life, their love story, their wedding. And you can just Meghan. And then, of course, we know it took the tone of to do with racism, colonialism, everything that Meghan faced, and allowed other people, historians that are anti-monarchist, in my opinion, to heap a load of shite towards the royal family. Spotify is another one that I'm sure is feeling some serious buyer's remorse. They obviously paid out 18 million for a contract for them to put out podcasts. They wanted Harry. Of course they wanted Harry. They didn't want Meghan. That's why it got cancelled. What did they get of Harry? Well, in 2020, when they first signed a deal, they had a cameo of Harry for a couple of seconds and Archie. And then 2.5 years later, they had another cameo when Meghan's first podcast was released for Archetypes, where Harry stuck his head in the room and surprised Serena Williams. And then that was it. So again, that's a contract that got shut down. Oprah is another perfect example. Not that I feel that she regrets the interview with Harry and Meghan despite the backlash, because it's Oprah. She is a billionaire. She's got so much money. It doesn't matter if she does shit interviews for the rest of her life. It was more to do with getting the viewings, and that she did. It is still one of the most watched interviews. But again, do you think she cared about Meghan Markle's silly, childish little gripes about being the Little Mermaid? It was about Harry. It was about having Diana's other son. It was her Bashir moment, just without actually asking any questions. Harry and Meghan made themselves look completely ridiculous, as did obviously Oprah by not even asking basic journalism questions when on the same interview they couldn't keep their stories straight. But Oprah then went on to do the Me You Can't See with Harry. Trust me, she might have used Meghan to get at Harry because they needed Harry to get away from the royal family. All of these people that have latched onto Harry now, they are the ones that also worked alongside Meghan to convince him to leave his family, to trust Meghan. Everyone was against him and Meghan because their love story was so pure. If you think about it, all of the rules and the regulations and the protocols were all in place, not to restrict Harry, not to suffocate Harry, but to protect him. Meghan needed to get him away from the royal family so then he could be used to do all these interviews. Meghan is using Harry to get the platforms that she needs. They are actually after him, not her. And I think that she knows it as well. She's not happy when Harry's got the microphone. We saw it recently, the way she's glaring at him, grabbing at her neck. She's deliberately trying to put him off. No wonder he stutters. But even when it was at the UN, when Harry gave his speech, which backfired, all to do with Nelson Mandela, Meghan, look at the way she is with him. She was jealous as hell because it wasn't her on stage giving a speech. Harry is just begging for her acknowledgement and did I do okay? And she's being quite cruel. We've seen this face with her so many times. As I said at the end of the last video, I don't think that Meghan is ever going to regret marrying Harry, but I think Harry one day is going to have some serious regrets. Now, staying on the theme of regrets, let's talk about some regrets that Harry and Meghan definitely will have together as a couple. And one that is becoming more obvious is David and Victoria Beckham. Now, obviously, I've spoken about this before, and this is where their friendship ended because Meghan, in her game to separate Harry from the royal family so she could control him, she had to destroy all of his friendships. One of the quick ways to do that for the Beckhams was she told Harry that Victoria was selling stories on her. Yes, Victoria Beckham, hugely successful, one of the most famous women in the world, absolute multi-millionaire. She's worked hard, she's loyal to her friends, she's loyal to her family. She decided to sell stories on Meghan to the Daily Mail. It doesn't make sense, but Harry, with his paranoia and believing everything that his wife was feeding him, then accused David and Victoria of it. So the friendship was slowly, definitely disintegrating from that point, and then they both stood David up when he flew all the way out to the Invictus Games at Harry's request. I think David and Victoria did offer a genuine friendship to Meghan, and she slapped Victoria around the face with it, and quite publicly as well. They had nothing to gain from it. They were richer, they're more famous than Harry and Meghan, and they're incredibly well connected. They are more popular with the Hollywood A-listers now than those two could ever dream of. With David's Inter Miami football team and their hugely successful Netflix documentary, the doors that they could have opened for Meghan. And I think that she has serious regrets about this because we saw Harry recently at one of the Inter Miami games, and David did not come see him. David completely avoided him. Harry was seen talking to other people that were there, like Will Ferrell, and he was also seen being blanked by David and Victoria's eldest son, Brooklyn Beckham, and his wife, Nicola. Now, I think Meghan is trying a different tactic as well because it came out on social media, so it's one of these ones I don't have proof. We take it with a pinch of salt, but it's Meghan's MO. She reportedly, on the success of Netflix, sent a basket full of flowers or a bunch full of flowers to Victoria, but Meghan was left miffed the fact that Victoria didn't publicly acknowledge it. As I said, this is like Meghan's MO. She did the basket of lemons to Jill Biden, I guess hoping that the First Lady would say, "Thank you, Meghan," publicly. Aside from the fact that Victoria Beckham is incredibly loyal to all of her friends and family, which makes her completely different to Meghan, she's also far from stupid, and I think that she would have seen that little stunt from a mile off. Now, in another famous A-lister couple that their friendship bridge was burned is George and Amal Clooney. Meghan invited the strangers to her wedding so she could have A-listers in the photographs to show the world that she's now made it big. She's a princess. She's got all of these Hollywood around her. And the truth is, the A-listers that went, that was the first time that they had met her. Pretty shocking, really, considering she didn't invite any of her own family. As we know, Meghan used her taxpayer-funded wedding as a networking event for future deals. Now, in March 2019, George Clooney famously spoke out in defense of Meghan, which has been twisted. He was actually berating the press, and he was saying that she does get unfair coverage by the UK media. But obviously, as we've since all learned, it was pretty much justified. We were waiting for the stories to come out to prove otherwise. Everything that was said about her came out to be true, including being a bully to all of the staff, Harry's family, Harry's friends, even her 3-year-old little niece, Princess Charlotte. The Clooneys have never been spotted with Meghan and Harry publicly, although their names do get dropped an awful lot. I'm presuming by Meghan's PR, it's the name association. We saw Amal arrive at Meghan's next networking big event on the taxpayers' dime pretty much for the security, and that was Archie's baby shower, where we saw Amal turn up because Meghan had made sure that the hotel had closed off the streets, the paparazzi were all lined up because she acted like she was at a movie premiere. Again, I believe that she invited Amal to use her for the coverage that she would get, that she's now made it big with the Hollywood A-listers. Now, George and Amal, I do believe, initially were nice to Meghan, and I think that they did feel that when she first moved to Canada with Harry, they were just escaping the media, because this is the story, this is what people forget that have only joined in and started paying attention since Oprah. When Meghan and Harry left left the royal family, they left because they wanted a more private and quiet life to bring their children up outside of the goldfish bowl. They had a lot more supporters back then. They said it was to do with the press and they just wanted to have a bit more of a normal existence. They used Canada because if they'd have just left the royal family and moved to LA and then started pursuing all of these commercial interests using their titles to do so, it would have shown Meghan for what most people called her in the beginning, and that was an opportunist gold digger. We hadn't heard anything of the way that Meghan felt that she'd been mistreated. The royal family had been awful to her. There were no stories of, her attempting or wanting to take her own life. Racism allegations, how they treated her when Archie's room near enough caught fire. These were all stories that came out after the royal family did not let them keep all of their privileges, their patronages, their security. As soon as the royal family started saying no to them at the Sandringham summit, that they couldn't have their cake and eat it, that's when all of these stories came out of thin air. When they first left the royal family, it was for a private life away from the fishbowl. But everything that we've seen unfold since, I think everyone can see that this was in the works for a very long time. Amal and George Clooney have since partnered up with the Prince's Trust, and they were seen recently at an event back in May for the charity. George and Amal also have their own foundation set up, the Albie Awards, which again is A-list gold dust. Meghan and Harry are nowhere to be seen because celebrities do not want the drama that they always bring. I mean, look at the drama that she bought to just go pick up an award in New York. That award was one of many that were handed out that night, but the way that Meghan drew so much attention to herself, dressing as the backdrop and then the car chase and everything, everyone just thinks that was Meghan's very own award show just for her. And the thing is, like we also saw with Kevin Costner with his recent fundraiser, there is a lot of narcissism and huge egos in Hollywood. Every event that Harry and Meghan go to, something happens. We had the hide the mic thing. For days, all we heard was Harry and Meghan, Kevin Costner, Harry and Meghan, Meghan. They couldn't just go to an event and make a donation. They had to have a role where they were on stage handing over the award. It's about shining the light onto Meghan. And I can't see that many celebrities want that. Of course they don't. As I said, they probably have bigger egos than Meghan herself. And they do not want their thunder stolen. They do not want coverage of their events, especially charity fundraisers, to be the Meghan Markle show. Now, despite a lot of Hollywood being very open about the fact that Harry and Meghan are not trusted, they can't be trusted. How can they? They've revealed personal secrets about family members. And also, look at Courtney Cox, Harry talking about taking mushrooms at her house. This is massively taboo. There is an element of discretion that you would have just for your friends. Why on earth would people want you to come to parties if you're going to leak everything, have paparazzi photographs taken of you, like that magically appeared when they were at Ellen and Portia's birthday vow renewal? And I think the only reason why they're getting invited to stuff is to do with Ari, who is the owner of the William Morris Endeavour talent agency, because Kevin Costner was signed to that as well. You're seeing these events, it's all linked. They're all the same clients mixing with each other. Harry and Meghan are pretty much done for. We know the political doors have shut. We know the fashion houses laughed at that one. We know that they cannot be taken seriously. But all is not lost for Harry and Meghan. There might be a little bit of a lifeline being thrown their way, and that is Kris Jenner. Recently we saw Doria posing with Kris Jenner and Kim Kardashian at an event, and then we saw Meghan at the same event, which was the Beyonce concert, although we did not see the Kardashians posing for a photograph with her, and they were stood at the opposite ends of the VIP section that they were in. Kris reportedly is toying with the idea of having Harry and Meghan appear as a cameo on their show. Harry and Meghan's spokesperson said that they are undecided on accepting the offer, but they do feel a connection with the Kardashian and Jenner family. And I'm like, the only connection that they would feel is to their money and their connections. Whilst people have taken the piss out of the Kardashians for years, they've trashed them, look how successful they are. Kim Kardashian, Kris Jenner, all of the entire family together, their fortune is must be well over the billion mark now. They get invited to the top fashion events, the Met Gala, places that Meghan can only dream of. And again, I find this really hypocritical because I remember Meghan snubbing them and turning her nose up to them. They were not good enough. But now that the doors are closing on Harry and Meghan, that the political elite do not want to know them, the Hollywood A-listers do not want to know them, now they're suddenly potentially available for a reality TV show. Kris Jenner has certainly been the most famous mummager, as they call it, and she has made a success out of all of her daughters. When it comes to them having Harry and Meghan on their show, I would say that Meghan needs the Kardashians far more than the Kardashians need Meghan Markle. It's Harry that they're after. But let's just hope with the success and where it all took off for the Kardashians and how they started off their quest for fame that we don't have a video leaked of Harry and Meghan. The world will never, ever be ready for that. Anyway, guys, ended it on a ick note. I will be back with you very soon where we will be talking about an appearance by the King and Queen, Catherine and William, and then as well a non-royal that's thinking of releasing a book, which Meghan might also have some serious regrets about. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Take care for now. Bye.